So why don't we start with Bobby Witt in Kansas City? Aaron Judge is obviously still a big favorite at BetMGM, about minus 1,100 judges to be American League MVP. But Witt with another two homers last night, and again, like kind of like national attention that he had not been getting before. Witt now finds himself, Ken, plus 500, the second choice on the board. Gunnar Henderson 16, Juan Soto 25, but looks like a two-player race and really probably just like a one-player race. But maybe not. What do you make of Bobby Witt? Let's talk about him and AL MVP first, and then we'll get to NL.
Yeah, I think people would probably be surprised to look at his stats, but then go look at the betting market. And I think with NL, they do the same thing where they go, well, wait a minute. Like I see Bobby Witt's numbers. He leads the AL in WAR. Like why is Aaron Judge minus 1,100 to win the MVP award? That sounds like preposterous. Offensive numbers tend to be much more predictive of who wins the MVP than like the overall WAR, like your overall wins above replacement. And so Bobby Witt Jr. is going to have a tremendous advantage in this area defensively, to like make his WAR look a little bit better. When if you compare the two offenses for the two players, look, Bobby Witt's offense is phenomenal. It's second or third best in the AL. Like he's amazing, and he had 10 total bases last night, something just a ridiculous number. But Aaron Judge's offensive numbers actually dwarf his this year. Like it's still not close. Now it can get close. There's plenty of time left for it to get close. And it with the way Bobby Witt Jr. plays, and when he has games like last night, it shows you that it probably wouldn't even take that many more games. Like if he did that and Judge did nothing, it wouldn't take that many more of those for me to change my opinion of how far Judge is ahead. But he is still ahead, and it's not by like a game, and it's not by two games of this. It's probably by like a week of this, maybe, or something like that. And Judge can get hurt, obviously, a little more injury prone probably than Bobby Witt Jr. has been. The Royals can become more relevant like the Yankees are and play better. They can pass the Twins for second place in the division. They can start challenging the Guardians. Like they can make themselves more relevant where he becomes more relevant. There are ways it can happen, but like this is not a mispricing. This is not off. This is not like the probability's wrong. Like it's like a parlay of a lot of stuff. It's essentially like a 5-to-1 parlay that Witt's going to keep doing this. Judge is going to just magically stop having the season that he's having, and that the Royals are going to win a lot of games. Probably a parlay of all those things together. And sometimes that's going to happen. Like 1 in 5, that's going to happen, and Bobby Witt Jr. is going to win. And it would be crazy if he did, because it's 1 in 5. I don't think there's anything to bet. I would need much more than what's happening right now to happen to consider Witt. I think he is by far the second most deserving and should definitely be in second place, but the market has that too. So I actually don't think there's a lot going on here. If you want to bet Witt for fun because he's a great player to root for and you don't like to bet minus 1,100s, okay. But I actually do still think there's like a pretty sizable difference between the two.
All right, that's American League MVP. Let's quickly just touch on National League MVP, and then we'll get to the pitchers here. Just because Ketel Marte just keeps launching bombs for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Even like Francisco Lindor is playing well for the Mets, had a big base hit in the game last night. Ohtani is a bigger favorite in the NL than Aaron Judge is in the AL. Worth noting, Mookie Betts going to be back for the Dodgers probably next week. Not that that's going to impact Ohtani, but just saying like Betts is going to be back for the Dodgers. That'll probably help the team. Ohtani minus 1,400, Ken. Ketel Marte plus 600. And if you want to talk about Lindor, 25-1.
Yeah, I would compare Marte and Lindor in a way, actually. I mean, Lindor was, like 125, 150 to 1 who got down to single digits and became relevant for a little bit because he was on an absolute tear. The Mets were playing really well. They're still playing pretty well. And, my guess is a lot of people that are betting Bobby Witt Jr. are probably betting Ketel Marte. I just think both of these are like this desire for like something interesting to happen. Like, oh, like it's not going to be a runaway. Like this is the guy who will make it interesting. Like, nah, I don't think any of them are getting interesting. I think these two are very likely to be won by the player who's favored. You can always have an injury. You can always have a really unexpected event happen. But as far ahead as Aaron Judge is offensively over Witt and Gunnar and Soto, Ohtani's much farther ahead over the other players in the National League. Now, the only thing that makes this one different from AL is the degree to which we don't totally know how a sort of a tiebreaker would work or a close race would work, because Ohtani presents a couple more challenges with his candidacy than Judge does. Ohtani DHs every single day. Ohtani was involved in a scandal. Ohtani has won this award while pitching before and isn't pitching this year. And so if he just wins anyway, is that kind of weird? Because it's like, well, then does he just win every year? Even when he's not pitching, he wins every single year. It's not fatigue. It's just different. And I don't know what would happen if, Ketel Marte's offense just somehow got even better than this, and Ohtani were to struggle, and at the end of the year, their offensive numbers would be similar. I think the non-Ohtani player would win there, but just to emphasize this again, it's the Grand Canyon between the two of them offensively, right? It's not even close. So don't use the WAR numbers when this is like Judge with Witt. One guy is playing defense and the other is not. So the WAR number is going to look a lot different than the offensive number. And just historically, doesn't have to work this way, but the polling so far this year would speak to what I'm going to say. Voters like offense way, 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 way more than everything else. Way more than a total projection or way more than a defensive projection. So tiebreakers offense, first criteria should be offense. First criteria should not be WAR when you're considering the candidates. And when you look just at offense, all of a sudden these two prices in the both MVP markets, they start to make a lot more sense.
Let's do AL Rookie of the Year next, where Colton Cowser finds himself as a pretty big favorite right now, minus 155 of the Baltimore Orioles. But Luis Gil last night, or I guess it was yesterday during the day, the first of the doubleheader, we talked about this during the show. Like, actually, it's colder today. It's actually like cold outside in New York today. It's no fun.
It's very annoying.
It is. And Gil laboring in the cold weather. 5 innings, 5 walks, but 6 strikeouts, no earned runs yesterday for the Yankees. Gil gets the win, his 12th of the season. He's the second choice on the board, plus 250. His teammate Austin Wells is at 8-1. Ken, what about Luis Gil and AL Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, I think we're getting really close to being able to narrow the box around a very small number of players. And for right now, I'd say we're probably down to 4 that can win, 4 that have any chance. And I say maybe in order of probability, probably have Gil, and I'll explain this more in the next segment. Probably Gil, a very small favorite right now to win. Minuscule, like just almost no difference between him and the position players. Probably a very, very, very small favorite. Cowser, I would probably have next, and he pulled really well in the last poll too, which helps. So like if it's tied between him and Wells or him and Wilyer Abreu, who's the other player that I think still has a chance to win, then I think he would win. So him second, and then Wells, and then Abreu I think still kind of lingering just because he doesn't even play every day. He platoons to a certain extent, but man, when he plays, 2 home runs, 2 doubles, like just his offensive numbers have allowed him to just hang around basically. So, this isn't June when you could say, hey, like the first 4 choices make no sense or everyone's out of order or something like that. I think there are 4 players who can win. I think they're ordered close to correctly. The things that will be the biggest arguments among people will be the difference between Cowser and Gil for number 1. That'll be the biggest argument right now. In the most recent MLB.com poll, Cowser got more first place votes. Since then, I feel like he hasn't had a hit. It's only been like a week, basically. But hey, when you're close with another player, and Gil didn't even pitch well yesterday, but the numbers look really good. Walked the ballpark, terrible control, but the Angels are so bad it didn't matter. 5 shutout innings is what goes down in the stat book. That's what goes down in the WAR number, so it doesn't matter. When he does that, and it's not that even the Cowser's been bad, he just was like on a really hot streak at the end of July. That stopped. It kind of pulls everyone back together a little bit again. So I don't, this market's going to reflect the poll to a certain extent. Nothing crazy has happened since the poll, so that's why it's just stayed here. But, game by game, it's worth watching how Cowser does. And if he were to slump again, even for a week, it immediately, the numbers, B-WAR and F-WAR, the numbers between the 4 players there are microscopic differences in both between all the players right now. And if you aggregate them, or average them, I should say, aggregate's what we talked about in the first segment of the show. If you average them, Luis Gil by a whisker has the highest average WAR among the rookies right now. Cowser and Wells very close among position players. So I think the order's okay. It's just like the way to bet into this is going to be actually, if you had no position, would be to root for Cowser to struggle. The market will be very slow to react to that. Very slow, because it always is. 3, 4, 5 games of not playing well, and this will look like this, and then that's not right anymore. He might even be third at that point. It depends on how Austin Wells plays over the same time. So very, very small differences between the players, where literally 2, 3, 4 games could, maybe doesn't flip 1 to 4. Wilyer Abreu is almost certainly in 4th, but 1 to 3, I think actually has a chance to flip still. For now, I'll say like Gil, tiniest of favorites. Cowser has to be first among position players and led the poll. Then Wells, then Abreu. Basically, like, if you're going to bet Gil, which I have to think about how much to cover great prices on some of these other players with any Luis Heel. I have to think about how to do that. Believe his next start will be against the White Sox too, by the way, which is a disaster if you don't have him.
Well, they did just fire their managers. So
well, yeah,
get like a little bump coming up here.
The resurgent White Sox. Ah, yes, let's spin that one. The time for you to do that is going to be a minute before his next start begins. You don't have to bet him now. He already pitched. You get 5 days to see what's going on with the position players. And then if you want to cover him, we're getting pretty close to you need to think about covering him. That's how close we're getting with how this is going to play out. Resisted it as long as possible. Just like can't fight the numbers and can't fight the small difference between Cowser and him, I think probably right now. So Wells still has a chance, needs to hit better. We're pretty close here, but probably right before Heel's next start, if these, like Cowser, Wells, let's say the next 5 days, they don't play well, whatever, 2 for 20, 3 for 21, whatever it is, you need Heel at this price before his next start probably. There's a really good chance he's ahead going into it.